Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 307th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel, recording from the MSP studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron, except I did something today.
What?
You ever, burn your mouth on something really hot?
Oh, yeah.
I think I did it worse than I've ever done it before.
Was it a microwaved food?
No.
Oh.
It was a restaurant food.
Ah.
We went out for lunch with my coworkers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just it's the people that you love that sometimes end up hurting you the most, and it was a crab rangoon.
Oh, yeah.
Just
that molten,
literally lava
yes.
inside of it.
Yeah.
Man,
and
that must have been
scalding.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must have been a little eager. I just
yeah.
grabbed it off the plate too fast or something, just put it straight in my mouth.
I just
apparently.
don't know the last time I've gotten food somewhere and it's been so hot that you burn yourself. Maybe pizza, but outside of that,
Yeah,
Must have been a fresh batch.
ripped the skin off my roof.
Yeah.
It hurts. It just hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're thinking about me, tonight, just keep me in your thoughts and prayers.
Yes. Yeah, I will throw something in the microwave, but I hate it when you microwave something and it's not quite hot enough. So I just overdo it, but then I'm too impatient to let it cool off.
Mm. Oh yeah, microwaves, they work.
Yeah. Do they though? Do you know how to actually use a microwave?
Well,
Because they have a lot more buttons on them
yeah.
than I use.
they do. You can really customize the power and all. And my wife has showed me how to do it. And
Okay.
and it's just too hard.
Yeah.
So I usually just hit one button. Just
Yeah, I press
turn it on.
Our microwave has plus 30 seconds, and I just go plus 30 seconds a few times.
That's yeah. Yep. Just get it warm.
But it would be nice to know, this type of food, is it frozen? And do this settings, and then it'll, because I do get frustrated at the microwave. You've got a plate of food or something. It's all unevenly heated.
There's a way.
Yeah.
There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. What are we doing this week? We are previewing the entire Mizzou football defense. We've got some news, and then we will go position by position, breaking down the defense, previewing it, and sort of giving our expectations for this upcoming season. Before we do all that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you listen to us, and of course you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Speaking of YouTube, I streamed again.
You did?
Yes, that was fun.
Was it?
It was fun. Yes, it was fun hanging out with the folks, and we beat Buffalo easily. No issue there.
Was it easy?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
yeah. Buffalo game was no
It was
issue.
a shootout.
It was a yeah.
I think the folks were saying if this really happened in real life, people would be worried.
Yes. Okay. So
Sorry, I'm
two problems here. One is the game hates Mizzou. I'm enjoying the game. Playing as Mizzou is fun. However, the game hates Mizzou, and they made the defense bad generally, and it's very frustrating. Honestly, even in my other dynasties, Mizzou is just losing games left and right, losing games they shouldn't be losing because it's not realistic, because they don't have the accurate roster.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. There's a few players that didn't opt in, I guess, or something,
Yeah.
and so they just replace them with non-starter level players, I
Yeah,
guess, or something.
basically. And they also did the offensive line dirty, IMO. But that's been a complaint of pretty much everybody playing the game, is
All offensive lines.
all yes, exactly. But it is incredibly fun throwing the ball from Brady Cook to Luther Burden. The game begs you to hyper target Luther Burden, and without even trying to have crazy, I'm trying to have realistic stats, and accidentally he's got
you're big on that.
12 catches for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Accidentally.
Yeah. I did finally get into a second season of another Mizzou dynasty that I'm doing, and Marquise Johnson gets in his off-season improvements, goes to 99 speed, 99 acceleration, and so that's a little OP.
That's useful.
Yeah, even on All-American, you can just so Sam Horn's the quarterback in year 2, and so on All-American difficulty, I'm still just kind of like, I'm just gonna do a lob pass as deep as it'll go and let Marquise run under it. But again, I'm like struggling outside of that play, so Sam Horn will be like 20 for 35 with 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Like
Marquise
all
Johnson.
the touchdowns are like 50+ yards.
Yes, Marquise Johnson, like 6 catches for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And we win by 1 point because I can't play defense to save my life. Anyway, it's been fun. Yeah, we went on to play Boston College, and we're going to pretend like that didn't happen, and we're going to try again next week.
I had the stream like pulled up, and I wasn't able to have the sound on during the Boston College portion. But I was there with you in spirit.
Yeah.
And I could just tell, you're getting a little frustrated, and reasonably so.
The body language was...
The Boston College, they're just really good.
Yeah.
And what else can you do?
Yeah, I guess watch out for them.
Every time I looked up, you were throwing an interception. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I rage quit in the 4th quarter after the 5th interception. And
The 5th.
Yes. Yes. So we'll try Boston College again. I got to figure out what the rules are going to be for like quitting and restarting and simming and forcing a win, all that stuff.
They make it too easy, don't they?
Yeah, I got to keep myself accountable. So I think maybe like 1 restart within the 1st quarter. Like if it's going real bad, abort and we'll try again. But other than we gotta,
It's just a microcosm of our soft society now, right?
Yes.
We can quit with no consequences.
exactly, just try again as many times as you want. Moving on. There is some news before we get into this defense. Just a little bit. Well, the biggest news of the week is just came out earlier. Former now Mizzou wide receiver commit Jayvan Boggs. He is now committed to UCF. He's staying home.
Yeah, I mean, this is about as random as you can possibly get. I was originally committed to Ohio State, decommitted, commits to Mizzou like not that long ago, like a month ago.
Yeah.
Decommits today, ends up at UCF. He's just yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't even really know what else to say. I mean, they've got some great wide receivers already in this class. So, kind of the cherry on top situation, but still hurts to lose like a borderline 5-star player.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, it's maybe like we're on the other side of some flips that have gone our way, or just like some recruitments where it's like, okay, we're getting this guy to come home or stay home, and it's a big recruiting win. So I don't know. I can't fault the kid for wanting to stay close to home. Literally was listening to interviews from camp with guys like Toriano Pride and just some St. Louis natives who were literally touting being able to play in front of their family as like a reason they came to Mizzou or came back to Missouri. And so seeing that, those guys talk about that right after that announcement, I was like, okay, like it'll be fine. He's playing at home in front of his family or whatever. So
he'll come back to his real home in 2 years, Missouri.
Maybe so.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not his real home. I'm joking.
Yeah. UCF is in the Big 12, right?
Yeah, I think.
I think so.
I don't know where they'll be 2 years from now, but that's where they are currently.
Yeah. So Jayvan Boggs is out. That's going to Missouri's recruiting class rankings and stuff will take a little bit of a hit. But like you said, the wide receiver room as it sits now that we'll talk about next week, plus, Olugbode is still committed and
Terry.
Yep. So it'll be all right. Hate to see it, but it's at a position that we're deep at, so it's no big deal. But yes, so also talking about camp so far, there hasn't been. I mean, I guess it's kind of good news that there hasn't been any huge news out of camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
No big injuries. Knock on
Yeah,
wood.
I think I might have said this last week, but yeah, it is almost uncommon. It feels like that when we open camp and there's no weird injury that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
And I think already maybe there's been maybe a couple guys get dinged up a little bit maybe, but like there was no like big surprise that I feel like we get a lot of the times at the beginning of camp.
And listening to the players talk in their press conferences, they just seem, I mean, I'm going to read into it a little too much, but that's all we have right now. They seem very relaxed and just, I don't know, like going with the flow. And again, like we talk about all the mantras and sayings and stuff, but it doesn't feel rehearsed. And they are emphasizing the, what the coaching staff talks about with just like knowing your role and embracing your role. And so they'll be asked questions about, playing special teams versus being able to get more snaps at wide receiver or linebacker or something like that. And just every single player is, it's my job to just embrace my role and study my plays, and those opportunities will come.
Yeah, it feels like the coach that can get the player to know his role and to like own his very, very specific job on every play feels like the kind of coach that's going to just win over time. Yeah. And I feel like, especially on defense, it would probably be so easy to just like want to be the hero on, every play and like, lose your assignment or, whatever the case is, or on offense too, like the wide receivers that don't want to block or and that kind of stuff. Like it's the coach that can get everybody on the team rowing the boat the same direction, even when they're not making a in their eyes maybe impactful play every single time, to do the little things. I think that's what Missouri did well last year.
Well, and you were just before we started recording, you were talking about a report saying that there's like you rattled off a bunch of starters that are going to be on kick coverage team, and I don't know. That's interesting how the coaching staff goes about balancing that. Coach Drink was also asked about kick return and punt return duties, and obviously the fans are more interested in that because like that's where you get your playmakers the ball an extra couple times a game. And Coach Drink listed like 5 different players that are like prepared to be the punt returner and kick returner, and was basically saying like we can't have that many guys do that, but just knowing that they're ready, and specifically talking about one of their jobs with the special teams unit is to make those be opportunities for your playmakers to touch the ball 1 or 2 extra times.
Right. And I mean, I'm always like on the fence too about like having a true playmaker. I mean, maybe specifically like Luther Burden, like be the punt returner, because those just are high velocity plays where, you're just like smashing into somebody who has like a 20, 30 yard head start before they run into you.
It feels like high risk, high reward from like an injury and like playmaking standpoint.
Right. But like if you are able to get a big return or even a touchdown out of a special teams play, it's just, I don't know. It's so exciting. It's such a momentum play, like making a game-changing play out of a pedestrian event. Yeah. It's kind of like a pick six or something where it's like just that there's like nothing more exciting in football than like a punt return for a touchdown or a pick six, because you're just not expecting to score points on this play. Yeah.
It's like something rare. Good is already happening. Like we're getting the ball back. Offense is going to come out. Nope. We're just going to go score a touchdown.
Right.
Or, in both situations there, the return touchdown. But, another thing Coach was talking about is like the amount of times last year, even with Luther Burden back there on punts, where they just need to be catching the ball and not losing 5, 10, 15 yards from not fielding it cleanly and it rolling and then being downed by the punting team.
Playing it safe. Finding the balance between playing it too safe and just letting the ball bounce and just wherever it goes, and sometimes losing 15 yards. But also the balance between that and like muffing the punt, which we lived in like a just terrible landscape of a couple of years where it's like we were in punt return hell. Like clenching my whole body, punt return hell, clenching my whole body like every single time somebody was about to catch a punt because of how many times that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Should be in better hands this year. We were in better hands last year. It's felt good for a little while now, but it's like hard to shake those old feelings.
Yeah. And I mean, it just feels like it's going to happen at least once
Yeah.
even in college ball. Like that stuff, it just happens.
Yeah. Anything else that you had from like camp or news or anything before we jump into the defense?
I don't think so.
A lot of excitement. Okay, so we're going position group by position group. Actually, I do have a few things on last year's defense. This time last year, we were previewing the defense, and like as we were talking through it, we were like, this is getting us excited. As we rattle off all these names and all this experience, this is making us feel really good about this side of the ball.
Yeah.
And then, you had an 11-win season. And it felt like when we got into our season preview, going game by game, we were like, okay, well, yeah, Missouri's defense is going to be good. A lot of these teams have a good defense, but we should be right there with them. And then that played out.
Yeah, on like the player take level for sure. It was like, we would say name and it'd be like, well, this guy's gonna be really good.
Yeah,
and we were just kept doing that.
Yes.
Like, are we being biased here? And we ended up kind of knocking that out of the park for sure.
So last year's defense finished 6th in the SEC in points per game allowed, 6th in rushing yards per game allowed, and 4th in passing yards allowed. Solid.
Yeah, just good everywhere.
Yeah, top half of the SEC.
And probably would have been like first in every category if we didn't have to play LSU.
Yeah, honestly, that was an outlier for the stats for sure. Okay, so what position group do you want to talk about first?
We didn't talk about this before, but should we rank them in our confidence?
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot. Or I'm putting us both on the spot.
Well, maybe after we talk about them all, we can,
Okay.
give like our most confident group and most question mark group.
Okay.
So I don't know where I stand on that until we get into it.
Okay. Let's go cornerback.
Okay. We'll start in the defensive backfield with the cornerbacks. Of course, we're losing 2 NFL caliber players in Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain. Rakestraw had 35 tackles last year, 4 passes defended, and obviously missed time with some injury. We'll talk about that with some of the other guys that stepped up that are returning. Chris Abrams-Drain, 4 interceptions, 51 tackles, 12 passes defended. He was incredible and just those 2 made it a lot easier on the rest of the defense, especially the defensive line, being able to get home.
Yeah, with having 2 NFL caliber corners kind of covers up a lot of stuff for sure. So we'll definitely see how much that impacts the overall defense because I think it could quite a bit. But Missouri did a good job going out and getting one of the best transfer cornerbacks on the market, if not the best, in Toriano Pride.
Yes.
Which I think Toriano Pride could immediately be one of Missouri's best defensive players already.
Yes.
So that was a pretty impactful move.
From St. Louis, committed to Clemson out of high school, played there 2 seasons, didn't actually start a ton of games, but participated quite a bit as a true freshman and true sophomore. In his 2 seasons in Clemson, he had 37 tackles, 9 passes defended, a sack, an interception, and a safety. So making plays, not being relied on super heavily, but involved quite a bit as an underclassman, getting those game reps in the ACC, and bringing a lot of experience. Even though this will be the first season, we're thinking this will be the first season where he's like starting cornerback, playing the majority of snaps on defense.
Sure. Yeah, I think
he still brings quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, he's locked to start, in my opinion, and kind of is a guy just on the trajectory of just kind of checking the boxes of a guy who could end up really being elite, with being a highly ranked recruit, going to a big program, like immediately playing well. I think this season, and if he's still in college the following season, I think he could be one of the best cornerbacks in college football.
I'm with you there. And most likely starting alongside him will be former, he's returning from last year's team, but originally transferred from Texas A&M, Drayden Norwood. He's a junior. So Toriano Pride and Drayden Norwood, both juniors. Last year, Norwood started 5 games in place of Ennis Rakestraw, but saw snaps in all 13 games, 20 tackles, 3 passes defended. So it's sort of like his time to step up and own one of those starting cornerback roles. We'll talk about Marcus Clark, who I think factors in as like the 3rd cornerback on the depth chart, basically.
Most likely, yeah.
To, give either one of those guys a breather. But Norwood, I think, is going to be the guy that gets the most snaps alongside Toriano Pride.
Yeah, I thought Norwood played pretty well in his opportunities last year. And yeah, I'm excited to see what he does in a larger role. And yeah, I agree. Marcus Clark will probably be the 3rd guy there. I think we'll just see all 3 of those quite a bit.
Yeah,
all 3 of those guys quite a bit.
Last year, Marcus Clark had 2 interceptions and 2 other pass deflections. So I don't know. I think it's like big shoes to fill, but between those 3 guys, I think they have the experience. I think they know the system. One thing that I saw Toriano Pride talking about in his little interview was just he acted like basically it's a given how much he like studies the playbook and understands the assignments on the different plays and stuff. I don't know. It was just kind of like an offhand comment, but like I said, he just implied that it comes naturally for him to pick up on the plays. He said he thinks he's a fast learner, and that's just always been a strong suit of his, is just like grasping the concepts of the defense. Mm-hmm. So I feel
that's
like
a good way to get in the field early as a freshman, which he did.
Yes, exactly. So that adds up. Mm-hmm. So I feel like between those 3 guys, we've got a lot of experience. Clark being a senior, transfer. It's interesting. All 3 of them started their careers elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a trend for this whole defense. Yeah. A lot of the starters on this Mizzou defense started elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So A&M, Miami, and Clemson represented with the projected to be the top contributing cornerbacks here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me give you my sneaky candidate to turn some heads this season. And I think to some extent, it might not surprise that many people if he does make an impact, but to some, it might be completely out of left field. But that person is Jamarion Wayne. Me. And I think like he kind of comes out of left field just because he has been in the program for a couple of years, but he's switched back and forth between like wide receiver and cornerback, and but he's just done whatever the coaching staff needs him to do as far as like practice reps or like just to provide depth at like whatever position we need it. And that obviously speaks to the athlete that he is. And we knew that like even when he was coming out of high school, he was a really, really good wide receiver from the Kansas City area. And I think that, it's going to be tough to crack, this 3-man rotation, but I definitely think he could be the 4th guy here and should get some opportunities to play this year. And he's just a big guy. He big athletic corner. Like I'm excited to see him get an opportunity. And he's earned it too. He's been I think it's his 3rd year maybe at Mizzou. Has just only done exactly what they've asked him to do. So he earned it.
Yeah, listed at 6'2", 195. And last year he played in all 13 games on special teams. So he is exactly one of those guys who has owned his role and done what he's been asked to do, and will work his way into playing time at a defensive position instead of just special teams. After him, it's some super young guys. So I'll just rattle them off real quick, and then maybe we'll shout out 1 or 2. 2 redshirt freshmen, Shamar McNeil and Nick DeLoach, and then 2 true freshmen, Cameron Keys and Jaron Sensabaugh.
You mentioned that Cameron Keys was getting a little love.
Yeah. Multiple players that I listened to mentioned him being super physical in camp so far, and making one play in particular where he just showcased his hard hitting, basically. He was an early enrollee with the freshmen, so he's been around the team for quite a while now.
Makes a difference.
And so I can kind of see him maybe taking that same path as Jamarion Wayne, where he's locked in, the coaches can trust him, but he's got to work his way up through the ranks. But I could see him being on like the fast track to go from, not redshirting, playing a lot on special teams, and then, Pride and Norwood will be back next year, but unless they add some transfers, like some of these younger guys are going to be asked to step up sooner rather than later.
Do you have Cameron Key's measurables in front of you there?
He's listed on the smaller side, 6 foot 166.
I feel
on the
like
official roster.
Hard hitting,
Yeah.
like physical, is not exactly how
Right.
you would like think of a cornerback.
Yeah.
I feel like typically those guys are like, they can be physical, obviously,
Sure.
but typically I feel like they're kind of like finesse technicians. Safeties tend to be more like hard hitting. If you're talking about secondary,
And maybe his
players.
size, it's like, because it's unexpected
Yeah.
from that position, and especially at his size, it's like turning some heads.
For sure.
But-
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, maybe a guy to watch long term for sure.
And then any other thoughts on like Shamar McNeil or Deloach?
Yeah, I think those guys are definitely like also kind of on the long term like track. But definitely some talent there. Some of those guys are like longer cornerbacks too. I think like long arms and stuff like that. I think it'll be
Shamar McNeil's listed at 6'3".
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the biggest corners I feel like we've had in a while. It's just as far as like length goes and height. Yeah, 6'3" corner. You just don't see that very often.
He kept his red shirt last year, but did play late in the season against Arkansas and Ohio State when there were some injuries and stuff. So he's got a little bit of experience there.
Yeah, he's probably the fifth or sixth guy there for sure.
Okay, so comparing to last year, like, I don't know, what percentage, if like last year was 100%, how close are we getting to this crew living up to last year's just dependability and, I don't know, the way that they were able to impact the game on the outside?
Yeah. Ennis, obviously didn't play the full season.
Yeah.
And so, I think we need to give credit to Marcus Clark and Drayden Norwood for the job they did when they filled in. So, this room really may not be as far off as it feels like whenever we're talking about replacing 2 NFL corners. Like, that sounds like a really scary statement to say.
Yeah.
Even though it's true. It might not be as scary as we think it is. And if I'm going to be completely honest, like, love those guys to death, and it wouldn't surprise me if Toriano Pride Jr. ends up being like the best player out of all 3 of those guys when it's all said and done by the end of his time at Mizzou or by the time he's in the league or whatever. I think he's got an even higher ceiling potentially than even Chris Abrams-Dream or Ennis Drakestraw. So not saying that's going to happen,
Sure,
but I think he's got that in his range of outcomes, and so I think he's going to be just as dependable as we kind of became accustomed to last year.
I'd say this group is every bit of 85% minimum
That seems
of last year's.
reasonable.
Yeah. And could work into even better than that if they stay healthy and figure out a good rotation there. Yeah. Maybe not looking at much of a drop-off at all. In fact, as we move to the other part of the defensive backfield with the safeties, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but Trevez Johnson, in an interview I saw with him, he repeated over and over again how he doesn't see any drop-off at all across the entire defense. So he was being asked about some of those departing guys, and he said over and over again that he just doesn't see much of a drop-off. But with safeties, that's new defensive coordinator Coach Batoon's specialty. So he works with the safeties primarily, and that star position a lot. So obviously we're losing J.C. Carlisle. Last year he had 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections, 64 tackles, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Felt like he was at Mizzou for a long time, and we'll miss him. I don't know. He's just kind of like one of those, like he was drafted late, right?
Yeah, I think it was a 5th round.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, apparently he's having a good camp.
Yes, and kind of moving to like the NFL doesn't really use the star position in 4-2-5 that much, so he's moving to more like a coverage linebacker, speed linebacker type position. So, yeah, I mean, he was just like incredibly solid.
Yeah.
And
Just like physically imposing. Like he
Yes.
would just, I don't know. He would just like cover so much ground. Like he was just a big physical dude.
Yeah.
And
making big plays
Yeah.
consistently. So we'll lose him, we'll miss him, but ready to step up and fill his shoes are some quality players. Dalen Carnell, just a junior, but we've been talking about him for years
that's
now.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like in this exact episode for the past like 4 seasons, I'm like, look out for Dalen Carnell.
Yeah.
This dude is the truth.
Yeah.
And like you see a little bit of it, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, there's more where this is coming from.
Yeah.
And he like every year he steps it up a little bit. And now he's basically poised to be like the guy.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to watch him grow.
Yeah, last year, 6 tackles for loss, including 3 sacks, 1 interception, which was the pick 6 against Tennessee. That was the only defensive touchdown all season.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And 7 pass deflections. So, yeah, he's back
7
there.
pass deflections.
Yeah.
Wow.
Passes defended. I'm not exactly sure how that stat is calculated, but I think it means they broke up a pass.
That's crazy. That seems like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what more can you say about Dalen Carnell? I think he has been making big plays, like for 2 seasons already.
Yeah.
In not even like being a full-time starter, he's been out there making plays.
Yeah, and he's just so versatile. I think that's probably like what I feel like I've loved about him just from the moment he stepped foot on campus I feel like that's what I saw in him was just like this perfect blend of like size and speed. He's not a linebacker, but he's probably not what you think of as like a traditional safety. And maybe he is that, maybe more at the NFL level, but he was just born to play like this hybrid role that he has kind of found a home playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Carlisle's was the same way, but I feel like Dalen Carnell is almost more like what Coach Batoon would like create in a lab to play
he's
star
more
position.
well-rounded. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I feel like he'll be all over the field making big plays.
Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, I was going to move on to the next player.
He, we talked about maybe last week, like who is going to step up and be the Darius Robinson, the Cody Schrader, the guy who just like is the leader of the team and the person that people are looking to when, we've got a 4th and 1 that we have to have a stop.
And I was talking about like when the offense goes 3 and out and the defense has to run back out there, who's going to be the guys like saying, okay, let's go pick up our offense.
Exactly. I think Dalen Carnell is probably that guy if I had to guess for the defense this year. He's been around the block. He's talented. Yeah. He's going to be on the field a ton. So he fits that mold for sure.
And I would say another guy right there in that like leadership role will be Joseph Charleston, senior. He was 2nd on the team in tackles last year behind Carlisle with 60, 4 pass deflections and 1 forced fumble. And I feel like, I don't know, he, I feel like there were some times last year where he had some frustrating plays, like just situations where he was in the game and a big pass play. There was a few instances where the defense gave up a huge pass play, and you look at the replay and it's like, oh dang, Charleston should have been that guy there.
Yeah, he's not like the physical specimen that Carlisle is or really even Carnell or anybody like that. But like I do feel like he's a smart player. He has a ton of college experience. He played at Clemson too, right? Am I imagining that? He's an older, experienced player. For the most part, he's going to be where he needs to be, and I think he's pretty solid. Yeah,
and I'm like tallying up now all all the transfers on this defense. I'll give you I'll give you a full tally by the end of this.
Is that 2021 class?
Yeah, that had to be entirely replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Charleston's solid, definitely solid. And with another year under his belt, another offseason under his belt, I think he definitely, like, I can't see him being a weak spot by any means. Just like, hopefully, maybe a higher floor than what we saw last year.
Yeah.
And then who I mentioned earlier, Trevez Johnson, transferred from Florida 2 seasons ago, played in all 13 games last year with 3 starts and had 43 tackles. And another guy who's going to step up and be a leader this year in the defensive backfield. And I feel like all 3 of these guys that we've talked about so far, these upperclassmen, and I would even maybe throw Sidney Williams in there. I'm mixing a lot of guys together here, but their ability to bring up a guy like Marvin Burks and have that leadership role for him. I feel like after Carnell and Charleston, there's 3 guys there who, like Trevez Johnson and Sidney Williams, are both seniors. So it'll just be really interesting to see how the playing time gets doled out behind Joseph Charleston, with Marvin Burks being the young guy who's kind of expected to take the torch at some point, or will they lean more on these seniors who have more experience?
Yeah. I think we'll see a lot of Johnson this season. Just kind of like you mentioned, just quietly, kind of like putting together a really solid season last year. Just really kind of an underrated like presence on the defense, and I think he's going to probably play even more this year. I mean, you mentioned Marvin Burks, and like he's kind of just the obvious choice to be, he's like the next just kind of like golden child, where it's like big recruit, immediately sees the field, immediately is impactful.
Yeah.
Like his coaches know it, his teammates know it, that he's the next big thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost one of those things where it's like everybody realizes like we got to get him on the field. Like because like we want to see him grow into what he can be. And so there's no way in my mind that they can keep Burks off the field. I think he's going to be pretty much a full-time player this season.
Yeah. And with with having 5 quote unquote defensive backs on the field most of the time, I don't know, just the way they can get so creative with it, having the star position and subbing in an extra cornerback sometimes on more like passing downs. And I don't know, I just feel like it almost feels like we have one of these safeties is going to be like on the outside looking in when it comes to their share of snaps at the end of the season.
That's possible.
But that's kind of part of the plan.
Yeah. Competitive depth.
Yeah. And when you get to, potentially like, if you're thinking about a college football playoff game after potentially appearing in the SEC championship game, like dudes are going to be banged up
exactly
by the time the end of the season rolls around.
Yeah. People do not stay healthy in football typically.
And also, Philip Roche is maybe sort of being brought along to be the future of that star position as well. So he'll be in the mix. Trajan Greco
just got arrested though.
Yeah, that's true. But they're handling that internally, and
fine, don't even trip.
He's not going to miss. He maybe missed a practice, I think.
Is that really like settled and over?
I believe so.
Cool.
True freshman Trajan Greco, 4-star prospect who enrolled early. He's been getting some buzz in camp.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player.
And then the last guy on my list is Caleb Flagg, brother of Corey Flagg, transferred from Houston Christian. He was the defensive MVP in the spring game, for what that's worth.
Wow. It does feel like this room is maybe a little top heavy. Need to stay healthy, which that's true of really any position, I guess. But maybe not as much depth here, especially if they're going to be playing a lot of 4-2-5. Like, can run out of depth quickly if guys are getting banged up. So But maybe if the opportunity is there for some of these guys like Trajan Greco or Philip Roche to play this year, maybe they'll prove me wrong and that they're ready to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, so that is the defensive backfield. We can move on. Maybe we'll just work our way closer to the line of scrimmage here by going with the linebackers next. Losing linebackers from last year no longer have Tyron Hopper or Chad Bailey. Of course, last year Chad Bailey missed a bunch of time with injuries, and Hopper was a little banged up too. But Tyron Hopper was so solid at the linebacker position, and I feel like I'm a little bit scared of having to replace him. But at the same time, with the injuries and stuff late in the year last year, we did get a glimpse of some of these guys being ready to step up. It starts with Chuck Hicks and Tristan Newson. They're going to be the guys that are called on the most, but then got some newcomers and some transfers and stuff that'll contribute. But yeah, any thoughts on losing Hopper and Bailey, and then who's ready to step up?
Yeah, it is unfortunate to lose two just like really experienced players. Had just played a lot of college football, just a lot of snaps. But I do feel like we made some solid additions, and Corey Flagg will be, I think, a good like run stopping linebacker, kind of middle linebacker. Probably not like super flashy player, but just hopefully will be pretty solid, and we'll clean up the run game. Honestly, I was like pretty amazed what Chuck Hicks did last year.
Yeah.
Like he transferred from Wyoming. He's dealt with injuries. I gotta be honest, I just never really had that high of hopes for him. And he just came in and just balled out last year. Just super, super solid. Never really had to worry about what he was doing. And so I feel good about him this year. Hopefully he can, I don't think it was a fluke, but hopefully he can replicate even a fraction of what he did last year, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, Chuck Hicks, 53 tackles last year, including 2 sacks and a forced fumble. And then across from him, even Tristan Newson was called upon to do more than we would have expected this time last year.
Yeah.
52 tackles and 7 tackles for loss for Newson. So those two guys both just rose to the occasion.
Exactly. Newson's like this kind of heat-seeking like outside linebacker. He's so good at putting the pressure on. I think he really can even drop into coverage if he needs to. He's versatile in that way where you can send him or you can drop him back, and I think he can be really good in either situation.
You mentioned Corey Flagg. He's a senior, transferred in from Miami, appeared in 43 games, but only 2 starts while he was at Miami. And just last year, he had 48 tackles and a forced fumble. So he'll be ready to go. Also bring in Coach Batum brought with him from South Alabama, Khalil Jacobs, 56 tackles, including 3 sacks and 3 forced fumbles as a sophomore last year at South Alabama. So he has this year and next year eligibility remaining. And then after him, it's young guys. Jeremiah Beasley was a transfer from Michigan, spent the spring of this year at Michigan before transferring over after Jim Harbaugh left. And then Brayshawn Littlejohn is a guy whose name has been popping up in camp, redshirt freshman who is like next man up. But you talked about the safeties being top heavy. I feel like the linebackers, it's like Hicks, Flagg, and Newson are seniors.
There's a lot of names. There's names. Yeah.
But then
don't really know.
We got a South Alabama transfer and freshman.
Yeah.
Behind them.
Yeah, and it's still like exciting guys, but very much unproven, especially at the SEC level.
Early enrollee Brian Huff, 4-star recruit.
Physically just isn't going to be ready, in my opinion.
True freshman.
Yep. But, bright future, not going to be ready yet.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm feeling like myself being a little question mark.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable to be a little bit worried about the linebacker room. I mean, Chuck Hicks is going to have to play his butt off. And
I think right now I'm less worried about injuries. I'm more worried about injuries derailing things in the linebacker room than I am safeties.
Yeah, that's fair. Chuck Hicks is going to lead the team in tackles, though, right?
Yeah.
Him or Flag, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You think Flag's an every down player? Maybe
I
not
think
third
there's
down.
going to be. I think there's going to just be a nice rotation. I think that's the name of the game. Is like you just don't. I think you just have to have a nice rotation and not lean on any one of these guys too much.
Keep him fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Corey Flag is mainly like an early down player. We'll see Newsom probably a lot on third down. Probably see a lot of Khalil Jacobs on third down. In addition to some early down stuff, probably especially for Newsom. But I think those guys will dominate third down. Might see some Little John third down situations. But I think it's going to be up to Chuck Hicks and Corey Flag to kind of clean up the run game.
Yeah, talking about leading tackler, I mean, like with the linebacker injuries last year, it kind of messed everything up as far as like the stats go, I think, because they just got spread out over more guys with Hopper, Bailey, Hicks, and Newsom all getting a ton of tackles. So it was interesting that Carlisle had the most tackles on the team last year, followed by Joseph Charleston. So that kind of paints a picture of Dalen Carnell being like one of the leading tacklers. But I feel like if you have Chuck Hicks be healthy all season, like if Tyron Hopper's healthy every game last year, he probably leads the team. Probably
is an indicator that we were leading in a lot of games for your secondaries. You're either bad at stopping the run or a lot of teams are passing against you, pass heavy against you.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe the staff can just lean on that. Like, we don't need to have this dominant linebacker who, unless one of these guys emerges and then you just can't take them off the field.
Yeah.
I feel like you just rotate them.
Yeah, there's probably no superstars here.
Yeah. All right. Now we are at the line of scrimmage, and we'll start with the interior on the defensive line. We've got Christian Williams returning, and I feel like you have to pencil him in as one of those leaders who's going to keep the defense accountable and just set the standard, especially when you consider how many transfers are going to be playing quite a bit on this defensive line. I feel like he's going to be relied on a lot to just eat up snaps and occupy offensive linemen so that some of these other guys can get to the quarterback.
Yeah, he's kind of is stalwart a word?
Mm-hmm.
It's a word? Okay. That was coming to mind.
Yeah.
For Christian Williams. Just
I think it applies.
He's just steady. He's played at a very, very high level for like 2 seasons now. Yeah. Kind of gets like forgotten about a little bit. And that's just, that's kind of an interior alignment thing sometimes. Yeah. Just if you're doing your job, you're just kind of plugging holes and stopping the run and stuff. But like, I think that he's a very helpful player. Did you realize this is his 6th season of eligibility? I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, according to ESPN.com, 3 seasons at Oregon where he recorded at least one stat, and now this will be his 3rd season at Mizzou. So he's got to be one of the older players in college football. 25 tackles, including 5 tackles for loss last year, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 pass deflections. He's going to get an interception this year. Okay, heard it here first. Big boy interception. Just mark that down as far. Texas, bad. That's my prediction. Christian Williams, interception. That's my other prediction. Okay. Somebody write those down. Starting most likely next to him on the interior of the defensive line is transfer from Florida, Chris McClellan. Recorded 46 tackles, including 3.5 tackles for loss in 25 games across 2 seasons at Florida. He's got the size. I think he's got the skill set. Athleticism. Yes.
I'm looking forward to watching him play. I just don't think he's another senior with plenty of experience. I think those two guys are going to be everything we hope for.
Yeah.
In the front.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Yeah, anytime you lose a presence like Darius Robinson, which shout out Darius Robinson, I'm wearing the shirt.
Rocking the merch.
You just never really know exactly how things are going to go. But yeah, I think Chris McClellan was a great addition in the offseason. I'm excited about Sterling Webb too.
Yes.
Webb is just like he's a shorter guy, like lower center of gravity, but just like incredibly strong type of player. And I don't know. I think those three will be a really good rotation. And then after that, it's question marks.
Yeah. So in the question mark range, we have Marquise Gracial, sophomore, and Jalen Marshall, sophomore. So both 2022 class. And they haven't had to do much, haven't done much, haven't transferred, but also haven't seen playing time yet. Coach Al Davis referred to them as being in the incubator the last 2 years.
They've been warming up.
And he said he's ready to see what they can bring. And we're going to see it because
they have no other choice.
Yeah. We got Christian Williams, Chris McClellan, and Sterling Webb. And then 2 sophomores who are going to be asked to contribute.
Yeah.
Now, Gracial, both of these guys. Gracial, 6'4", 323. And Jalen Marshall, 6'4", 312.
Yeah.
Like, they are every bit
They're
SEC size. I think physically they can make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm feeling okay. I'm talking myself into these 2 guys as the future of the interior of the defensive line. I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's just literally how it goes. It's like we hear about guys in recruiting, they get all the attention, they commit, and then we don't hear about them. Like when I'm talking about like defensive linemen, especially, a lot of times we don't hear anything for like 2 years, and then it's like, well, hope they're good. Hope they've been practicing hard or they've been working out. Hope they pan out. And this is their opportunity. So sometimes guys come through and they're every bit as what we thought they could be, and other times they're not.
Yeah, and I think something else that's giving me some optimism from this unit is, like, no disrespect at all to Jaden Jernigan or Realist George, but like just thinking it through, like, okay, we got to replace Jaden Jernigan and Realist George's production with Chris McClellan, Sterling Webb, and these 2 sophomores.
It can be done.
I feel okay about that.
Yeah, I hear you.
We also have Justin Bodford and Elias Williams as true freshmen.
Which, I love both of those guys. Mm-hmm. I think those guys are really high ceiling players, but again, like just the theme of generally like freshmen in the trenches, just probably not going to see it this year.
Don't count on it. Just my overall thoughts, though, the interior of the defensive line, I'm going to put them at, I'm going to put them at 103% of last year's unit.
Interior or the whole line?
Interior, just the interior.
Okay.
You okay with that? Is that too bold?
I can go with you there.
Okay, moving to the outside, maybe where more of the magic happens. It's maybe a little bit more fun. We have, obviously, replacing Darius Robinson. Can't do it, really. So we're going to do our best here. But returning is Johnny Walker Jr. Had 5 sacks last year, 3 forced fumbles. Forced fumbles all over the place. Not as well. Chris Abrams-Drain had quite a few picks, but a lot of forced fumbles last year. We know what we have in Johnny Walker.
1 ejection.
1 ejection. Over under 1.5 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties for Johnny Walker Jr. this year.
Oh, for the whole year?
Yeah.
Y'all will take the over.
Oof.
1.5?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 1.5 ejections over under.
No. I think he's figured it out.
Okay.
I'm going to say under. I think he only gets 1 unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
Oh, yeah.
Is face mask unsportsmanlike conduct? Personal
I
foul,
don't think so.
face mask, no.
Cam would know.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Cam would know. He's great with rules.
Unsportsmanlike conduct is a separate thing versus anything else that would have a name.
Spit on a guy or something like that.
They'll call you for that for sure. Johnny Walker Jr. under. Maybe he might mess up and do horse collar tackle or face mask or something, but
that doesn't count.
Exactly. Only one or fewer, I say. It's unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
He's good though.
Yeah. Over under 5 sacks. He had 5 sacks last year.
Okay, Johnny Walker, perfect example of a guy where it was like, hey, here's that recruit we got 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Hope he's good.
Yeah.
And literally game 1 last year, it was like, all right, he's good.
Yeah.
Like immediately we were like, nope, this dude's a stud.
Yeah.
He's a contributor and he's a difference maker. And there is a lot of that going on, especially this year, which I don't want to, we're talking about defensive ends, but just about the whole defense real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like those like Johnny Walker situations where it's like they could be really good but we just got to see it first. But Johnny Walker immediately what impressed me last year from the first game, and he really kept that energy the whole year.
Okay, he had 5 sacks last year. Darius Robinson had 8.5 sacks. I know we've got Darius Smith coming off the edge as well. Where do you think Johnny Walker ends up? Knowing that Darius Robinson at 8.5, Walker last year 5.
How many sacks?
Yeah.
Give me 6.5.
Okay.
I think when you have a player like Darius Robinson that you have to account for, it can create opportunities for the other side. Not saying that he was like riding the coattails necessarily, but I think when
makes your job easier.
When there's general havoc being created by elite players, everybody eats.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of that going on, but I also think he's gonna get his again this year though.
Okay, after Johnny Walker Jr., it is transfer city. Michigan State transfer Zion Young, Georgia transfer Darius Smith, Arizona State transfer Joe Moore, who was on the squad last year, and then Georgia Tech transfer Eddie Kelly. Do we even know? I mean, I feel like it's going to be situational again, but do we even know who of this group is going to be like the primary guy opposite Johnny Walker?
I feel like there's one guy that really stands out that I think is going to be a go-to player, and that's Zion Young.
Okay.
I think we got a really good player here, and he's going to be a difference maker. I would definitely guess those two players as like primarily our starters, like probably the highest impact defensive ends.
Zion Young, 6'6", 265.
It's about what you would draw. That's how you draw it up if you're creating somebody in a lab.
Yeah.
It's about the
create a player in the video
create
game.
A player that's perfect measurables for a defensive end.
Yep. Darius Smith, 6'5", 240. They're both juniors. So we could have both of them for 2 seasons. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And Joe Moore has the experience. Obviously, he's going to get after the quarterback. He had 13 tackles last year. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot, but was just he was available, which is sometimes like by the end of the season, you just need guys to be available.
Yep. You gotta have like minimal drop off.
Yeah.
When you rotate, which there's a ton of that.
And then Eddie Kelly, one thing that was talked about a lot when he transferred in from Georgia Tech this past offseason is his versatility. That he played inside and outside in his time at Georgia Tech, a la Darius Robinson. So it will be very intriguing to see how the staff uses him. Mm-hmm. We're expecting him coming off the edge right now.
What's Eddie Kelly's measurables?
I will tell you. 6'4", 278.
Yeah, probably playing defensive end, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next off season or something like that. after we don't hear anything about the football team for 4 months and it's like August and we hit fall camp, they're like, Eddie Kelly's now a defensive end, or I'm sorry, a defensive tackle. He gained 20 pounds of muscle and he's a stud on the inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I think we could see him play quite a bit this season too.
That feels like a good squad.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like 5 solid contributors.
Yeah, I think so.
And especially if Johnny Walker and Zion Young are like your primary ends who are on the field the most, then you're bringing in these other 3 as needed. I'm feeling good about it.
I think we could even see maybe a little Ja'Kai Lang this year.
Okay.
And
say it.
Maybe a little Williams Winery.
Yeah. I'm hoping so.
That would be fun.
Yes.
Okay. Prediction time. Does Winery redshirt this season? That's still playing. He could still play in 4 games.
Yeah.
You think he redshirts, or do you think he plays enough to burn the shirt? They say.
Okay, so I think there's a decent chance he redshirts. Honestly, like thinking it through, I don't think they throw him out there on special teams. He's not one of these guys that, oh yeah, he played in all 13 games, but basically exclusively special teams.
I'm hoping there's no reason to play him enough where he sheds the shirt.
Yeah, I'm with you. Get him,
but I do want to see him.
Yes,
I think it's very valuable that he gets out there, gets some playing time.
Get him some run in a couple games early, and then preserve the red shirt, but you have him for 2 games late if something crazy happens.
Yeah.
How does something we might need to look up is, again, putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but what does the college football playoff, does that change the red shirt rules at all? Like, I wonder if
still, I would think it's just 4 games.
I guess
but they're handing out waivers these days.
True.
So who cares?
You apply for a waiver. Reason played in the college football playoff.
Just play the whole season and then apply for a red shirt and just see what happens.
Yeah, just play every game for 4 seasons and then just like be like, hey, I never used my red shirt season. Can I just come back?
Yeah, they'd probably say yes. I don't know who they is anymore.
United States Congress would directly be deciding eligibility in 5 years. Williams Winery. Let's get him on the field. Let's see what we got there. Coach said all he needs to do is make sure his shoes are tied and his ankles are taped, and we'll find a way to use them.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Sounds right to me. Was that the whole defense?
I think so. We rattled it off.
A lot of amazing players.
Yeah. Overall thoughts? Give me your just give me the sentiment here. Like, should we be confident that we're gonna be as good as we feel like we should be? Like, will expectations be met?
Yes, if your expectations are this is a top half of the SEC defense, I think we'll be right there. To echo Trayvez Johnson, I'm not seeing a lot of drop off.
You trust him?
I trust them. I think we've got the leaders in Christian Williams. I think Christian Williams, Johnny Walker, Dalen Carnell, Joseph Charleston, those guys are ready to go. This is a little side note. Toriano Pride apparently is the biggest trash talker on the defense.
Okay.
Some of the, like Mookie Cooper, I think, was talking about that it's just nonstop. And so Toriano Pride was asked about that in his interview. And he was saying, like, well, it just depends on how much the offensive player gives me to work with. Like, if they just don't respond, I just kind of shut up. But
when you go.
Yeah, when he was like basically saying when he can tell he's getting under their skin, he just leans on it. And it reminded me of me playing basketball when I was a kid, because I wasn't that athletic. I wasn't that fast or that good, really. But, I had a few tricks up my sleeve. One of them was trash talking, and one of them was just like holding onto the player's jersey that I was guarding, like where the ref couldn't see.
Wow, you're one of those guys.
Yeah.
I could see you getting under my skin a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, side note to your side note.
Yeah.
we played in an adult basketball league, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
That's true.
And you picked out the player to mess with on the other team.
Yeah.
Like you'd done your research. Like you had seen him play in a couple of other games. Just like
that's the trick is
spectating. Like you saw that he had a little bit of a temper.
Yeah, I can relate to what Toriano Pride is saying here because you watch a guy play a little bit and you're like, oh, okay, he's a little bit of a hothead.
Yeah.
Maybe easy to get rattled, and so then you just chirp a little bit.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so you were doing that to this guy when it was our turn to play this team.
Yeah.
You'd put in the work on the front end.
Did my homework.
You started chirping.
Yes.
And someone on the other team like saw what you were doing, and he was just like, please stop. Like please don't.
Yeah.
Because he just knew.
The specific guy was like getting a little heated, made a bad play or something, and I just said, he's rattled, like really loud where everybody could hear it.
Of course all of us are like turn all right, let's start chirping too.
Yeah. And then his teammate looked at me and said, please don't. But because that team had already gotten in an altercation, I saw all this happen. It was like, all right, I know what to do.
Waiting for your moment.
Yeah. And so he was like, let's not do this. And my response was, okay. Like, yeah, we're all adults here actually, and this is a random,
this is very non-serious
rec
basketball
league. So I don't feel an overwhelming need to get this guy super worked up. But
you did win though.
If it was SEC play, then
all bets are
I'm leaning on it.
Exactly.
That's what I expect out of Toriano Pride as well.
Exactly.
Back to my overall thoughts on the defense. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident. This is the top half of the SEC defense. I wanted to look at the schedule, remind myself of the schedule. I can probably, like, that A&M game, we're going to learn so much.
It's a test.
And
in that environment.
Yeah.
I'm already nervous.
That's going to be the game. I'm just like, the narrative that I already have going here is that's the game where the defense is going to have to pick up the offense for a quarter, for a half. And if they do that, the offense bounces back in the second half and gets it done.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the one.
Any defensive coordinator concerns? Moving on. No Blake Baker.
No Blake Baker.
We got the Batoon platoon.
Yeah. Honestly, gave us an opportunity to upgrade, and same scheme, same system. It seems like Batoon has come right in and, enmeshed himself in the brotherhood, and it's hit the ground running. His specialty is safeties, so he's working with the star position. He knows the 4-2-5. I think I'm not concerned there in the slightest, honestly.
Okay.
We kept, what's his name? The linebackers coach, DJ.
Smith.
Yes, kept him around despite,
the pull.
Yes, and maybe like, oh, he's in line for promotion but didn't get it. So how does he feel about that? Nope, just smooth sailing there. I'm feeling good about it.
Okay.
We were talking about the different position groups though, and sort of like ranking them. This is going to be very difficult. What position group do you have the most confidence in?
Oh man, I don't want people to take this wrong way.
Okay.
Like, I don't think there's any position group that I just trust with my whole life.
Okay. I can understand that.
I know you are very confident, and I think I am too. I think I'm like mostly there with you.
Okay.
I would say I'm mildly concerned about the overall state of the defense. Like,
Okay.
I think there's pieces, but there's just enough unknown where I need to see it.
Yeah.
Before I feel really, really good. And maybe, halfway through the season, we're just thinking like, okay, well, all's good. Like, there was no need to worry. But it wouldn't surprise me if halfway through the season we're saying just keep scoring because we have to. And so then that's the good news is like, we'll talk about the offense next week, but I think that it might kind of like flip to where the offense is the engine of the team and it's kind of what's driving everything that's happening, and the defense is maybe a little bit along for the ride.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit last week, that it may be a little bit of a reverse of last year where the offense is having to pick up the defense and be like, no, it's okay, guys. We're just going to keep scoring.
Yeah. But I'd happy to be wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong, but it would not surprise me if the defense does take a little bit of a step back, like just overall. But as a team, it just doesn't matter that much because the offense is so good. But with that being said, I think it's easiest to pick out the position that I have the least trust in. But if I had to pick my most trusted,
You can say least first if that was easiest for you.
give me linebackers.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Pretty easily just the most inexperience, probably the least like talent.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the position group with the most to prove.
the most to prove.
Yeah.
There we go.
If we're trying to do a little positive spin there.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of motivation. I think I'm going to go with the safeties as my most trusted position group.
Now, you were a little concerned about the depth there, potentially.
I was, but I think that generally, like the first like 4 or 5 safeties or guy, if we're putting Dalen Carnell especially in that group, which we are,
Yeah.
I think I trust the first like 4 to 5 of those guys a lot.
I think I pretty much agree with you, but let me say that I'm most. It's interesting because I want to say I'm most confident in the cornerbacks, but then I look at my paper here in front of me and I see Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain, and I'm just thinking like, okay, how much? If they don't fill those shoes perfectly, will that be a bad take? But I don't know.
If we didn't have Toriano Pride, I mean, he just literally makes all the difference.
Yeah.
For the cornerbacks, and I agree, they're up there.
I think I would agree with you though with the safeties.
The defensive ends by far the most like exciting position group, like the most fun, so much talent, so much potential, so many different guys that could end up like being a surprise or, I think the defensive ends might be like my favorite group as far as just like the most fun. But when I'm talking about just we need to stop or generally the most trust, I think it's the safeties.
I'm tallying up the transfers here on this defense. There's 18 total of 18 returning transfers.
I was about to say that, and I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Of the guys that we named. And so like 8.
I wonder if that's like normal for
8. We're going to have like 8 starters, 8 or 9 most of the time that did not start their career at Mizzou. Interesting.
That would have been completely unheard of like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be strange. You would assume that there was a coaching change last offseason or something.
Even like 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on the defense? I think we pretty well covered it.
I'm so ready to watch some football.
Yes. It's right around the corner.
It's literally like 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Insane. Let us know what you thought about. Let us know what you think about the defense. Who are we sleeping on that you really like? And do you have any question marks? Let us know in the comments. It's going to be exciting. I'm feeling confident. Is that all for everybody this week? You got any? You look like you got some like gem of something to tell the folks.
I was trying to think if we discuss like schematically, like, but I think it's going to be pretty similar. I think they're going to try to run a lot of 4-2-5, a lot of havoc plays.
That's star position.
Just let the secondary eat.
Yeah.
Just try and throw on us.
Yeah.
You can't.
No. It's going to be beautiful. I gotta pull my names up here. This might take me a second. You're gonna have to fill some time, Kyle. That's your favorite thing.
I'm gonna have to fill some time.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can rattle them off.
Special thank you to our Patreon supporters.
Britt Therese, Brian. No, well, we miss you, Brian.
Ryan D. Moore.
Ryan D. Moore, Tristan,
Ben Smith.
Daddy JD,
Parker, Tim Keynes, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Groffalo, Brandon Hanks, Matthew Tilley, Louis Fernandez, Joshua Jacobson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We love you. And I'm sorry I can't remember your names, but Cameron's really good at that, and I trust him. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week.